beer and whiskey, that's all right. Hey, Chris.
Come on. There we go. All right. We are streaming live on Facebook. It's 6:29. We don't want to shortchange anybody who might join us right at 6:30, so we'll have a few more seconds of patience and then we'll launch. Come on. There we go. All right. Okay, let's see. Take care of this little bit of business right away. Get everybody muted and unmute Mr. Where'd you go, Rod? There you are. Unmute Mr. Clifton. Ms. Kempema, you can unmute yourself if you like.
Okay.
Anybody can for that matter, but you know, we'd rather everybody wait until the end, and then we'll try that. All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome from the alternate OS Virtual Check-in Studios in Lone Tree, Colorado. I'm looking for the Lone Tree. Actually, there's more than one, so I don't know why they call it this. We're glad to have y'all on the OS Virtual Check-in tonight. My co-host, Michelle Kempema, is with me. Our other co-host, Chris Palomares, is somewhere between Kansas City and Denver right now. So he's en route. And he may be able to dial in, at least be a fly on the wall. We'll see how that works. Actually, Christopher's iPhone. There he is right there.
I'm right here.
All right. And what's your speed?
It's in kilometers or miles per hour.
And this looks like Kansas.
Actually, I'm in Colorado now.
No kidding.
Yep.
Awesome. Awesome. Congratulations. Eastern Colorado looks a lot like Kansas. My apologies to our Coloradan friends out in there around Ray and that area. So thanks for joining us tonight on OS Virtual Check-in. This is how we at Caboose University and Colorado Model Railroad Museum and Mr. Palomares support our train enthusiast community during this interesting time. But as we say, we intend to continue this throughout at least September. We have shows slotted every Tuesday and Thursday night, 6:30 Mountain Time through September. And we fully anticipate extending it on through the end of the year. I'm about to sneeze. I was hoping to get through this show without a sneezing fit. Our format, it's the same Zoom platform every Tuesday and Thursday evening, and we're also live streaming on Facebook. So our format, the first 45 to 50 minutes is interview and then Q&A. Our ground rules, we're here to have fun and connect with other train enthusiasts. So be respectful, no trolling, no grandstanding, no inappropriate comments or questions, and please leave politics out of the forum. As I said, the shows are live streamed on Facebook, so you're able to watch them later. They're also on the Caboose YouTube page, so you can enjoy them many, many, many times over in case you have a terrible case of insomnia. So we're open to suggestions as always, as to guests, as to format. So and we've received suggestions in the last week, so thank you for those. And so without any further delay, let's move to our guest this evening. Tonight's guest, as you may have seen in our Facebook announcement, is a fan and modeler of the Delaware and Hudson. And you might say, well, you know, we just had one of those on a couple of weeks ago. We had with Ken Karlowitz. Well, in many ways, it's easier for Ken Karlowitz to be a Delaware and Hudson modeler because he lives there. He's just miles away from the Delaware and Hudson. Our guest tonight has um, has a sight impairment and lives at least 11,500 miles away from the nearest Delaware and Hudson railhead. So that makes our guest, Rod Clifton, a particularly interesting story tonight. And Rod, we're glad to have you with us.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So this is hopefully I've teed up an interesting story. I know the story is interesting because we've heard it. Hopefully I've done a good enough job of teeing that up. Tell us about your background, about where you grew up, and particularly about your passion for trains and specifically the D&H.
Well, I've been born in Perth, Western Australia, so I'm about 45 minutes outside of our capital here. Didn't have any influence on my train bearings, whether either way. Over here, we either have an English influence, it seems, or an American influence. And mine seemed to have been the American one initially. As a small child, I'd crawl toward the TV set apparently when the Cannonball Express whistle blew on the old TV show Petticoat Junction. I don't know what it was. Something just drew me to that whistle and the train, and my fascination for trains began right way back then. As I grew up, teenage years, I built a layout with my father in our home. We sold the home, unfortunately, and the layout had to go with it. At that stage, it was a Hornby HO kit. It was just the basic inner city set that they did with the blue logo and the yellow ends and some coaches to match. It was just an oval track, and we had another oval on the inside that my younger brother later would run a little steam loco, a little shunter or switcher inside. Once we sold that though, my fascination for trains didn't dissipate. Always wanted to get back into it, but we rented for a while and while we built our own home, and space was an issue again. But I was in our city hobby shop in the good old days and went down into the basement, into the store. I was just looking around and something caught my eye. It was up high. And I've already said this to some of you before, it was the yellow box Atlas RS11 HO scale. And it just caught my eye and I couldn't leave the store without it, so I had to have it. Anyway, that sat in my wardrobe. I'd pull it out and look at it every now and again, just dreaming. And with the advent of the internet, that opened up another whole new world for me. I don't like reading. I'll be the first one to admit that. Because of my visual impairment, it's a chore. I'd rather watch something or have someone tell me or show me how to do something. So it's just one of those things. But with the internet, there were heaps of sites that you could go to. For D&H fans, the first site I ever came to was the Bridgeline Historical Society. And the guys there were fantastic. And I noticed at the bottom of that screen, there was an Australian flag. And I thought that was odd. And it had the gentleman's name. So I did a bit of searching around Australia and I found this gentleman. His name is Neil Hunter. And Neil got into the D&H back in 1972 when he seen an issue of Bear With Me. It was a model railroad craftsman, I think it was, of that issue. And it had the PA on the front, number 18.
Oh, yeah.
And
I remember that issue.
I'd love to get a copy of that one day. But from there, Neil, I think through his work, I can't recall what his work was. Maybe he won't like me to say, but I think he actually visited the States many times. And he struck up a friendship with George W. Hockaday. I hope I've pronounced that correctly, who the 18 is actually named after.
Mr. Alco.
Yes. So he's had quite a relationship there for many years. So you can only imagine when I got in touch with Neil, how happy I was. The wealth of information he was able to pass on, and then he in turn was excited. Someone else in Australia likewise had the love for the D&H. There are now 3 or 4 of us here in Australia. There is another gentleman in Perth now that's taken it on, and we actually belong to the same US model railway club over here now, and that's all we do run is US prototype or US railroad. But initially, after I met Neil, I came in contact with a gentleman by the name of Jeff Tyrrell, and he does custom building and things, and he's done some wonderful things for me. I was hoping to have his website up to flash it for you, but it's called Custom Models. I can always give it to Kevin later. But Jeff
3D
now,
printed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff has now gone into 3D printing, and he's doing some very unique steam locomotives in the D&H, and that's something that I'm sure is going to take off like crazy. So that's where I started to get the passion, and then our friend Ken Kalowitz, he has a lot to answer for. He posted his first YouTube video roughly 3-4 years ago, and I think it was only within a half an hour of him posting it I found it, and I contacted him, and we've been friends ever since. And his influence on me, particularly his sense of place, and what's the other one, his favourite one, about light.
Oh, yes.
It's gone at the moment. Hang on a minute.
Right. The sense of place, and then the, oh, shoot. And I would have said it had you not asked.
Language of light.
Language of light. That's right. Yeah. Both very good. I will say, parenthetically, both very good videos that I would recommend on YouTube. Ken Karlowitz, Sense of Place, and Ken Karlowitz, Language of Light. Great video. Actually, Sense of Place is really more of a documentary, and Language of Light is Ken talking about the use of light in photography and in model railroading. So anyway, I sorry for interrupting you, Rod.
No, that's fine. I just mental blank there for a second. But with those two components that he puts together, his work is just amazing. I think we'll all agree. And the level of detail that he gets, the light, and the work he puts into it to make it a sense of place, it just combined is something else. So yeah, that's basically how I got into it. And once I started researching the D&H on the internet, learning more about the history of it, you know, the fact that they had the Stanbridge Line in the 1800s, they were pretty much the first railroad to operate in the US. There's a lot of history there, and I just love that. And the scenery gets me in. I mean, I've got a slide or two to show in a little while outside of my shed. You'll see that the ground and the trees here are nothing like you've got over there. It's totally different. So modelling something like this, having resources available and people like Ken to help assist in that way as well, it's a blessing really, because I wouldn't be able to do it justice. Wouldn't look good with an Australian gum tree sitting there next to the D&H. So.
You know, I'm fascinated by a few things here. And one is the fact that there are 3 or 4 other D&H modelers in Australia. That's pretty fascinating, because you know the D&H is one of those railroads that is a Class 1 railroad, but not that huge. You know, it was mostly New York and Massachusetts, and later it expanded. You know, after Conrail, but not a huge railroad, but one of those that, like my favorite railroad, the Monon, has a following that is greater than the size of the railroad, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I find it fascinating that you have that many fellow D&H fans down under, and that's pretty cool.
Well, I'm sure there's probably more.
Yes.
They're quietly going about doing their thing. It's only when I see something that I pounce upon them and say, hey, you're into the D&H as well. So.
Excuse me. Nice. And the other thing that this brings up is how you don't need to live in the same region or the same area, number one, as the railroad that you're modeling anymore, with all the resources available on the internet. And, you know, as you say, like the D&H Historical Society, all the books that are available that have been written about the D&H, and also the fact that the community that we create of train enthusiasts is not is not limited to geography, to certain geography, because here you're connected with D&H fans literally all over the planet. And you're very much a community, you're very much a community and part of the larger train enthusiast community. So I like both those factors about your story and about this connection that we have.
And people like Model Railroad are hobbyists.
Yes.
They feature people from time to time that obviously model the D&H, so that's another source of material for me to take in, whether I use something from their layout or get an idea from it as to how I might do something. That you take away something. Haven't seen his video for a while. Matt Butcher, I think it is. He did the D&H, and there's another Duchess and something or other railroad that's based on the D&H. There's so many out there. You just got to find them. That's the trick, finding them. But the videos are fantastic to watch and just invigorate you to do something of a like mind. But Ken's, I'm sorry, keep putting him up on a pedestal. Ken's, to me, is the standard. If I can get anywhere near it, I'd be very happy.
Well, it's we started this whole program with Lance Minheim talking about a similar subject, which was the model railroad as a canvas and effectively as a work of art. And Lance was the one that actually referred us to Ken Karlowitz. And of course, Ken describes that in terms of sense of place. And I thought that was an interesting part. Not to delay discussion of your model railroad, and we'll get to that, but I really enjoyed this part of our discussion that you and Patrick, you and Chris and I had the other day about the fact that when we're modeling a specific railroad, and whether it be strict prototype modeling or proto freelance modeling, but particularly strict prototype modeling, we can get stuck in wanting to model everything rivet by rivet. And I think it's my opinion that you can actually represent something more poorly by trying to be a strict adherent to exactly what was there, as opposed to focusing on getting, as Ken would say, a sense of place or the sense of the atmosphere of a particular place, which you might be able to do with structures and arrangements of a place that's a little bit different than it actually was.
Yeah. Well, as I said the other day, I have no way of trying to do prototype gear. I couldn't do it with my eyesight being what it is. I'm game enough to try a certain task or two, but then I don't want to ruin my loco or have it look hodgepodge. We were talking also the other day about how the models are coming out now with a great deal of detail anyway. Unless you're really, really fussy and want, the fly sitting on the windshield of the loco, the guy waving it away, then that's fine if that's what you want. But I think most of us would like to achieve the level of realism that is accepted but not over the top. And I think sometimes, what's the old adage? Sometimes less is more. So that would be my approach. I'd like detail, and I can appreciate it. Although I can't do it, I can appreciate it to see it. It's one of those things. If it's there, I can see it and appreciate it. There's no way I could do it myself. Things like putting the windshield wipers on the locos or MU hoses, If I tried to do that, I would just stand up with a mess and glue and my fingers stuck to the loco probably. But as I said, the advancements in what they come with now, everything's done. I mean, at Athearn, I think it was their GP 38 or 39s that came out a while ago. They all had all the little windows on them, and unfortunately, I didn't realise. And I was transporting them to the club to run to try them out, and the little side windows all got taken off. So I've ordered the replacements. I've got them. I need someone to put them on for me. Anyone want to volunteer?
We probably have to volunteer to have them put on before they're shipped over there, because
Yeah.
we know that's the one thing we can't change about you being 11,000 miles away, is the fact that when you do order stuff, it's going to come with a heavy freight bill, right? Because
Well, yeah, that does
it's
certainly.
coming from the States generally.
Yeah. Well, speaking of things I've got, I might just put my collection up of my books I've been able to get. If that's
Okay, sure.
I'll just try and get that up. So I've been collecting stuff from the D&H for many a year, and so what you're seeing now, hopefully, is it up there, Ken? Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so these are just some of the covers of some of the books that I've managed to get over the years, and some have been a little harder to get than others. Some people go, how the heck did you get that all the way over there? But I think that's where, again, another tool in our arsenal that we need to use, and most of us do now, probably to your detriment to a degree, Kevin, I suppose, but the eBay is a great source of this stuff. I mean, people, collectors, anyone who's had an estate, someone pass away, all this stuff is sitting out there, and it's a wealth of material available through that means. And a lot of these books are Morning Sun publications as well. They're very prolific with the D&H, and I really appreciate that too. They're good, high quality. I've been fortunate enough, I think, yeah, the D&H memories here on the screen on the right there. If I remember correctly, that was a very special one. My friend Jeff Tyrrell heard about this being published, and the gentleman only published so many. And once it was gone, that was it. So I don't think that one, unless you see a copy on eBay, I don't think you'll ever get that one again.
Wow.
So I've got a lot of reading material. As I say, it's a chore, but I do try.
Mr. Alco.
I think that one there on the right was another one, which was, I believe, a limited run as well.
And of course, it has Cobleskill coal in it, which is
Yes.
kind of a D&H landmark, a famous, rather famous D&H landmark.
Correct. Even these books here, although they're not all about the D&H, the D&H is mentioned in it, and it's still got some relevance. So, same with these. Obviously, coal and anthracite, it all mentions the D&H and so on. And some more Morning Sun books, just about the area, and again, it reflects on the D&H.
Jim O'Dell. Oh, Jim O'Dell wrote a few of these books.
So, I've got a couple of magazines myself. There's the first one there. And these articles here are very impressive. This layout plan in this particular issue, it's got a spread over, I don't know, 8 to 10 pages. It's awesome, huge. And they had the second part of it in another issue. That's how big it was. And I've managed to score some of these. These are quite interesting, although I'll probably not use them too much. They've got all the diagrams and all the details for the
Nice.
rolling stock. That's for the 46 for the D&H locomotives, and this one's very handy. It's the freight car equipment. So if anyone is building their own, this is something you probably would want to keep an eye out for. It's got all the measurements and got everything there. And finally, I put these here too. This is a friend of mine here in Perth, believe it or not. He's an artist, and he knows how much I love the D&H. So he got on and he just seen the RS3M in the bicentennial colours and a PA, and they've been drawn by hand with some sort of ink paint pens. So I thought that was pretty cool. I've actually had them framed now and put up in my room.
Nice.
and the final thing, I've managed to get a D&H timetable with all the notes from 1982, I think it was. So there you go. So that's the
That's a
selection.
significant number of, I mean, you just showed us dozens, literally, of publications about a single railroad that was not a large class one railroad, you know. It was a decent size. Today we would consider D&H a regional. In fact, I think I mentioned to you that I did some consulting for the Susquehanna when I was part of a team doing consulting for the Susquehanna when they were operating the D&H after it was peeled away from Guilford in the bankruptcy, and high-railed the railroad. And I was putting together a business plan, helping put together a business plan for operating the D&H as a regional railroad. So today it would be considered a regional railroad. Back in the day, it was significantly double track. Trains ran from yard to yard, and it was mostly a bridge line. And but the reason I mention that is because what we would today consider a regional railroad, look at all the books and publications you just shown on that railroad, that just demonstrates that its following is far greater than the size of the railroad itself.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
I think, you know, there's commendation there for the roads that have taken the D&H over in the past, that have tried to continue its heritage, I guess you could say, by keeping some of the lightning stripes alive. I don't think there's too many of them left now, but I mean, Canadian Pacific, I believe, kept two of the the GP38-2, I think they were. They kept them running in the lightning stripe, and you know, all the rail photographers were always out taking photos of those. I think one of them got damaged last year from memory, and there was questions of whether they were going to repaint it or repair it. So it'd be a shame if there's still not something out there representative of it. And I can't remember which one it is, the Saratoga and something tourist railway. They try and reflect the colour scheme in some way, shape and form. I think there's a reborn 5012 out there at the moment, going up down the Battenskill, is it? Ken will kill me, I can't pronounce it, Battenskill.
Yeah.
And there's lots of photos of that lately. And so that's sort of paying homage to the D&H and keeping that alive.
Yeah, it lives on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. So I want to jump to the focus of your model railroad before we talk about some of the specifics of what you have planned and the space that you have. And that is that your focus is, you know, it's clear from looking at the, you know, all the documents you have and from your discussion that you're a diehard D&H fan and not necessarily beholden to 1967 on the D&H, or, you know, because you've mentioned you like the steam, you like the diesel, you know, you like the history of the D&H. So that kind of informs your focus for your model railroad as a kind of a proto freelance D&H. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right. My friend Ken, he actually has already mentioned this a couple of times. He keeps putting me in it. On Mr. Rose's podcast, he put me in it. He said, my mate Rod in Australia has got a pick an era. I keep telling him. And it's hard, though. It's hard because I do love the D&H. I'm passionate about it. And I take his point to heart. And I'm trying to, what can I say, trying to do as he suggested, merely because I can see the practicality of it, and it's good advice. But it's just so hard because I love, as you say, from the steam era, the camelbacks, right through to the Pacifics and consolidations, right up to the early diesels where you had the S2s and S4s, RS3s, RS2s, just black with the yellow tiger stripes on the end. Then you had things like the shark nose, you know, the Baldwins. I mean, They're ugly to some people. To me, I love them. They're great. I've got two of them. I've got 1205 and 12. Oh, what's the other one? My brain's not working today. But either way, 1215, I think it is. So that sort of stuff. And then, as Chris alluded to the other day, you have the leasing aspect of it. So you had stuff on the D&H through the years from Long Island. You had the I-nose C420s with the yellow nose and the patches on the cab, you know.
From the Long Island, yep.
Yeah. Then you had Lehigh Valley, Lee and Hudson River. You had Reading, of course, the green locos with the tiger stripes and the D&H shield either on the nose or the side of the cab. What else did we have? The list goes on and on. And then you had other railroads working in with it. You had Boston and Maine, Conrail. I think it's Maine Central was there. Is that right? Yeah, the orange livery. So, excuse me. There's so much colour and variety. Yes. I mean, the PAs, who can forget the PAs as well from Santa Fe originally? I think they're one of the most well representative of all the D&H trains out there. So you've got to have those as well. And there's another gentleman on the Facebook group. I'm not even going to say his surname, but his name's Justin. And I think he's alluded to doing some passenger cars, passenger rolling stock. And I'd like to do a bit of that as well, because the D&H did do passenger movement as well as freight. So, but again, depending on the era, it may not be viable. But I guess if I do my layout in such a way that irrespective of what I put on there, it'll still look right. If I want to run passenger cars, I can do it. If I want to run steam, I just don't have any diesel on at the time. It's hard to know what to do. I think the thing will be build the layout and see what happens.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. And well, and you know, as we say, and I'll remind our friend Mr. Karlowitz of this next time I talk to him. But you know, as we often say, whose layout is it, right?
Well, yeah.
And it's like you're not building this layout for someone else's enjoyment. You're building this layout for your enjoyment because you enjoy the D&H. And you've mentioned, I think you mentioned that it's you're planning an operations and a rail fans layout so that you can operate it as a prototype railroad and you know, has switching opportunities, but also just watch trains run. And I think again, it goes back to whose layout is it, right? And so if you want to run those fat boiler D&H steam locomotives and run them with the PAs, you know, or the shark noses for that matter, more power to you.
I probably wouldn't run them together, but
right.
Certainly, you know, if the layout was done in such a way, you wouldn't know what era it was. It's just D&H looking, as we said, the sense of a D&H area. You could run just steam one day and diesel the other. I don't know. But Ken has a point, and I'm not saying he hasn't, and I do take it to heart, and I'm still processing it as I go. And that is, you know, if you pick an era, then you put everything on there that is of that era. So the signs on the buildings, the motor vehicles on the road, you know, the truck, cars, all the other things, and what you put on there as far as locomotive power all represents that time frame. I can't remember the time that Ken's got his early 80s, I think.
1979 to 81.
81. So, you know, he's got a very narrow window there. And I've said to Ken, look, even if I go from 70 through to mid-80s, a bit broader, it wouldn't hurt. He's, oh, you got to pick. But I love him and I appreciate what he says. You know, I'm not gonna totally disrespect him, and no, I'm not doing that. I take it on board, and I'm still considering what era I'm going to do to sort of narrow it down at least to a point.
Fair enough. Yeah, I understand that. I
still want him to talk to me after this.
I'm certain that he will. But yeah, again, and one way to do that, as you've alluded to, one way to do that is to that a lot of modelers do is they'll, and clubs do this a lot too, is that they'll change the vehicles. In fact, we talked about this when Otto was on the show. Otto Vondrak was on the show a couple weeks ago. You change the vehicles. You might change some signage here and there, but the structures by and large probably don't need to be changed much. And you can change from a steam era, maybe a late steam era to even mid diesel era, by changing some of those accessories, and particularly vehicles. I think vehicles are a big thing because, most places you go around, the structures are pretty much the same as they were even 50, 60, 70 years ago, especially in small towns. So there's a way to do that without having to, as I say, to run a camelback with a shark nose,
Yeah. Well, I mean, Cobleskill coal is still there today, although there's not much left of it now. It's starting to fall apart, I believe. But, that thing has been there for so long. You could just about model any era with that in the background. And I think we discussed the other day, I actually have that kit. So one day that will be on my layout representative of the D&H. So, but that, what you say about the vehicles and things, being able to swap things out to make it different, that's something I've thought about. So.
Well, and kind of going back to what Lance talked about on our first show, and what we discussed with Ken also in his, was you can have Cobleskill coal there next to the tracks as kind of an anchor, as a focal point, and that anchors it as a distinctively D&H location. And then the other structures, there's no need to have 10 other focused structures. I mean, that would be a little bit schizophrenic, whereas you have 10 other fairly mundane frame houses painted white in most cases, right? Then that's maybe more effective in giving you a sense of scene, a sense of place, than if you had every single structure and every tree replicated exactly.
Yeah. And again,
so,
for someone like me, I couldn't do that if I wanted to. I'm just so far away, the things don't exist. It's only by means of those books and the videos I've got that I can sort of get a sense of what was there and what to put there. So you're exactly right.
Yeah. So tell us about what you have planned. About the.
Well, I'll see if I can bring it up. I was just going to, sorry, I've got it queued up to show you just quickly some of the
That's quite
videos
all right.
that I've got as well. Sorry, trying to get it up. Okay. How do I get back into there? Just bear with me. One way to learn is to jump in, isn't it?
I suppose. A lot of people learn to swim that way.
There we go. Okay, so again, I won't bore you all, but this is some of the collection of video and DVDs that I've been able to get. This was one of my first ones, and that has steam and diesel on it. And anyone, that is a great reference material on that one. That is truly awesome. These little vinaigrettes I got off of eBay, and they come up every now and again. We get into some more modernish stuff. These were done on eBay. I don't see them that often, but occasionally they come up. It's a whole series. And again, they're around the era, the 80s. And again, the colour schemes are there, the variety. But for me, as you can see, the scenery in these cover shots alone, and there's Strucker Viaduct, or Strucker, I don't know how you guys say it. So, let's get going. And this gentleman, John Picaris, or whatever his name is, he's done a great job with his railfan videos. Well worth the watch. As you can see, if it's got D&H in it, I'll grab it.
Well, by the time you watch all those DVDs, it's almost like being there.
Yeah. All right. So, sorry, to get back to your point then, John, I just wanted to share that with people because I had it queued up.
Thank you.
I guess I'll just pull up my shed. I've taken a photo, and I must put the disclaimer out there to everybody. It's a bit of a mess at the moment. I've been doing a lot of odds and sods and tidying up and moving things back and forth. So it is a site. But what I'm going to show you basically is going to be where I would like to put my layout. Right, get that going.
So you're still you're outside of Perth, right?
Yes,
You're just outside of Perth, which is basically the area where you grew up.
correct.
And I think you said you're on 5 acres.
Yeah, I live with my parents still. I never got married. It's the only reason I can afford to buy so many trains and things. And the only reason when you see the shed, I've built such a nice little shed. And I'll tell you now, as a bloke, the sheds are never big enough. I need to extend mine or
Right.
build another one bigger.
Right.
But the goal originally, this whole shed, 9 square meters, which I don't know what that is in your feet again. I've had that issue. But it was a pretty large area.
About
Anyway.
29 feet.
Yeah.
29 feet by 29. Yeah.
I was originally designating that whole area that I'm going to show you for train layout space. Unfortunately, I've had to put an office out there for my business because I got sick of doing everything in my bedroom. And I ended up putting 2 partitions up instead of just the one. And the other, I'll show you, I've turned into like my messy room to work in. So it took away the overall size a little bit, but when you see the photos, you'll get an idea anyway of the area I eventually will fill. So I'll stick the slides on and walk you through it.
Now, I understand you're just about to launch into setting up your workshop. So you're getting started on this, right?
Correct. Well, what happened? I built this lovely big shed, and then my mum and dad decided they wanted to store their caravan in it. So where I was going to set up my saw table and my drills and all the rest of it and be able to work, that didn't happen. My poor tractor's sitting out in the weather pretty much and everything else, but it's just one of those things. So I've come to an arrangement with Dad. I've sold something that was taking up room in his shed, so now he can get his caravan out of mine and I'll be on track. So it's taken a long time to persuade him. You know, dads are dads, aren't they? I'll do it. No, you do that first. I'll move the caravan when you move that. So
There you go.
I'll sell it. It's gone. So that happened yesterday, actually. The lady came and got it. So what I had in Dad's shed, taking that room, it's gone. So now this weekend, guess what I'm doing? Pulling his caravan. All right. Okay. Sorry, bear with me leaning into the screen. Right. I want the. Oh, I messed it up now. There's the slideshow. Okay. So here we go. So that's the shed from outside. And the area that I'm actually going to be building my layout in is where you see the double door and the windows on the end.
Okay.
Inside that, there is a partitioned wall. And then that's where my big vehicles are kept and all my equipment and so on. And the last one where the tractor is, that's where is a 3 metre wide by 9 metre deep bay. And that's where I'll put the workshop.
So about 850 square feet. That's pretty decent. That's very decent.
Yeah.
And we can see from this photo that your scenery is just a little bit different than that of upstate New York.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that picture in the foreground, I'll be politically correct. It's called an Australian grass tree now. This one right in the foreground, and they grow very high. And when there's a bushfire, you don't want to be near them. The heat that they radiate is intense. I've just experienced that last weekend before. Our neighbour tried to burn through his property and it got away from him. So I had to go and fight 3 fires that day. But it's a lot different, as you see. And even the ground, you'll see it's different soil. I like the guys that say, just go outside, grab your soil, put it on your layout. It's great ground cover. I can't do that. My soil, as you'll see, or you can probably see it just past the tractor there, it's like beach sand. It's just grey beach sand. So, yeah, again, that's where the videos and things are absolutely fantastic for me.
Well, and Michelle has a question, Rod.
Yes.
Are those geese?
Yeah, mum's geese. They go down and make a mess right in front of where I have to walk into my shed. I'm constantly cleaning.
Yeah, we know that geese never make a mess anywhere.
No, they taste good. Well, so I'm told. I'm not allowed to eat it.
We don't want Mom to hear that.
Yeah, no, I've threatened her with it a few times. Yeah, but as you can see, a big thing here is solar power. So we've got solar there, and I've got a hot water system, and you'll see why. All right, oh, there we go. See some of the locals when I was out there reading somebody's article.
Oh, that's great.
I have 30 of them out my back lawn every night.
Even better than geese. That's awesome.
Yeah, and their poop's not so hard to stand on. So
I mean, I take that for granted that it just seems it's maybe you take it for granted that you just have kangaroos hopping around your yard, and I don't know what I would have expected with Australia, but that's amazing.
no, look, where we are, they're being forced more and more into our property because we're in a semi-rural setting now, and suburbia is slowly encroaching. But no, they're like pets. I mean, they will go you if the big reds come out and they get aggressive, so you have to be wary. But these little guys, they're babies and they're fine. As you can see, I put a bit of bread out there for them. I don't do it too often because it's not good for them, but they just eat the grass and mum's roses, so that's all right.
That's so cool. Yeah,
I can eat mum's roses because mum's geese poop on my concrete pad, so fair.
John had mentioned, and I had the same thought as did Greg Cassidy, that that's just like deer in almost anywhere else, or like where I live. I had elk in the yard today, nose in a bag full of pine needles. So it's just depends on where you live, right?
Exactly, it's relevant to your local situation.
So how about koalas?
No, we've got no koalas here. We don't have the eucalypts. We've got plenty of snakes. WA's got some of the deadliest snakes in the world, and they're out there. I have to be very careful when I go to the tractor that there's not one underneath if I haven't started it for a while. And although the shed's got some clutter around it, it's pretty good considering. So you keep things clear, and generally they'll stay away. But again, you can see this is winter, and that's about as good as my grass gets. We don't get a lot of rain, not really. So anyway, I digress. So as you step in the two glass doors, this is what meets you, a mess. But again, you can see I've been fiddling around and getting things. I've got scenic supplies in front of us. I've got stuff all over the pool table. 4 pool tables, days are numbered, I think. Foam and everything. So you can see to the left, the 2 rooms. The far one's my office. The other one I'll show you into in a minute. So you come from the door, you turn to your left, and this is where I'm going to start my layout to begin with. Where these cupboards, the stuff is on the left-hand side, looking at that PA door. That's the area that's 2 foot by 16 foot long. I'm going to build a section there. There's where I'm going to do it, different angles. So that's the wall I'm going to build along there. So I'll go from the far corner up to just below the light switches and things there.
So there's a few locomotives and cars over there. How many did you say?
That's just the overflow.
Pardon?
That's just the latest overflow. Yeah. So this is looking from where you were looking at back across the room. So this is giving you an idea of the depth I've got. You can just see the stud wall to the left there with the yellow vest in front of it. So that's how the width I will have. And I must say, I've got the picture there. You can see that steam loco picture in the background. Sadly, that got burnt down in our big fires last year. That was down at Waruna. And when the fires took the whole town out, that had actually been preserved. They had it in the wooden shack with the wooden boards all under it, and the fire, there's nothing left of it. It just melted. So
that's neat. That's cool.
I was fortunate to score that. A client of mine, I'm a window cleaner. I did a art gallery, and the artist never came back for it. She gave it to me. So here's the overflow rack you were looking at. Notice all the Athearn gear there, Chris?
So how many locomotives and cars?
I've got over 200 locos, and I don't know how many freight cars. I haven't counted them. So this is the area I can, entertain and have the crew over. And this is one of the rooms. This is the room I've tidied up, sort of. I've got a little programming track there you can probably see on the bench.
Yep.
And an old computer. It's an old 286 running JMRI. So that's looking back out of that room. Looking back from the kitchen area, again, giving you an idea of the space that I've got that I'm going to work in. I've got it all insulated. I've got the suspended ceiling and enough light. And that's looking back out the other end. So there's my firefighting gear. There's my rolling stock, some of it.
Whoa.
And then there's all the other stuff out in the other shelves as well. There's some of my rolling locomotive power. And again, there's a lot of Athearn there, a lot of Atlas, a little bit of Bowser. Bowsers are the what are they, 626s, 628s? I can't remember. But that's all RS11s, GP38-9s, all that good gear. The U33Cs, my shark noses are in there. Yeah.
Are these is that your original RS11 up there in the top left?
No, they're RS2s I've got in the original boxes too. I didn't know Atlas did them in the yellow box. I was trying to find my RS11 this morning, but the more stuff you got, the harder it is to find what you want when you want it. As you can see, there is order in my disorder. This is what I use to do my couplings and height adjustments. You can see the coupler there on the bench. The little blue thing on the stand, that's actually a closed circuit TV camera with a light built into it. And that's plugged into that TV. What I do, that table you can see is the article on there. I read with it. It blows it up to a large size on the TV so I can read.
So you're able to read it. Nice.
Or in the case of coupling and other things, doing the finer point as far as I can, I'll put it under there and I look at the TV rather than looking where I'm working. And that's a tricky thing to get master of. And that again is why there's certain limits to what I can and can't do. I just thought I'd show you that because that's in
That's pretty cool. That's a way that you're able to adapt, right?
Correct.
Nice.
I've got some posters hanging up from the D&H Bridgeline Society. That one came, and that's a lovely poster showing the system map, and that's another bigger expanded version of where they operated. Oh, here you go. There's some more. See, nothing like your terrain, is it?
It looks a little different.
Yeah. See? And you can see that soil. It's just like beach sand. Nothing I could use for model railroading unless I coloured it or did something else. So there you go. Thank you for seeing those, watching.
Nice. Nice. So, I was fascinated by the use of the basically the scanner, the camera on the stand that you reproject onto the TV. To enable you to read. What are some other ways that that your sight impairment has changed the way that you model?
Well, the biggest one is I can't drive. I've never been allowed to drive. I've got 6% vision, so I'm legally blind. And once you're at that point, you don't go past go, you don't get $200. So getting around to join people and associate with clubs and go to people's places and learn things there, it's somewhat difficult. I have been fortunate. The guys we have a model railway exhibition here. It's usually in June, but because of the current situation, it's been cancelled this year. And that's our AMRA, Australian Model Railway Association, once a year exhibition. And I went along there. I've been a few times, as you can imagine. But one year I just stopped and talked to these guys because I was so impressed with the quality of their layout. And I must give the club a shout out too. Some of the guys are going to be watching. We are the US Model Railway Club of WA, and we're based believe it or not, another 45 minutes south of Perth. So met up with these guys and said I'd like to be a member and how could I do it though. And I get a phone call from a chap who's only 15, 20 minutes away. So he comes my way, picks me up every 2, 3 weeks usually, goes past his house and then another 45 minutes an hour to the club just so I can get there. And I really appreciate that. And
Wow.
this is it.
Yeah.
This is what brings the modelers together. People are prepared to put themselves out.
That's right.
So, come sausage sizzle, once a month we have our meeting. I, provide him with a hot dog and a drink. It's still cheaper than fuel, I think. But that's something I've been able to do to overcome not being able to drive and get around, and I really appreciate that aspect that people are willing to do things like that. The only other thing is, eBay has been the kiss of death for some businesses in the hobby, but others who know how to bring it on board and use it as part of their strategies benefit from it maybe. But eBay's been my saving grace, as it were, there, because if I couldn't get stuff off eBay, I wouldn't be able to get it. Simple as that. Hobby
Nice.
shops, I know you guys are experiencing the same sad reality that hobby shops are disappearing. The brick and mortar. We had one here recently, as last year, go under, and had been around for 75 years. And there were other reasons as well why it had to close its doors after all those years, but the main one was the fact that people weren't going in and physically buying things there. It wasn't relevant to paying the rent and everything else. One hobby shop here has also moved 2, 3 times because they keep putting his rent up. And each time he seems to go to a smaller, more out of the way sort of place. So, yeah, it's sad, but that's the world we live in. So everybody out there support Kevin and all the other hobby shops, please, because I'm a very visual person, despite the fact I don't have my eyesight. I prefer to go in, pick something up, look at it, and more than not, I'll take it home and go, oh, I've already got one of those. But nonetheless, I like to be able to see it and go, that's lovely, rather than look on the internet, buy it and get home and be disappointed as well.
Right. Right. Yes. Well, and thank you for saying that. And yeah, we're understanding from our distributors that that long-term trend, particularly for smaller stores, your 1,000 square foot stores around here and there, has accelerated pretty dramatically during the coronavirus. And a lot of these stores aren't coming back, which is unfortunate. But it does say something for the about the value of the support of the community. How important this community support is, and that's something that we at Caboose really very much appreciate. And I know Michelle at the Model Railroad Museum appreciates it as well, because it's why we're here. It's why we're here. So thanks for saying that. Hey, as an aside, I wanted to tell you that your friend Neil Hunter's on with us tonight. So
great.
He wanted us to let you know that he was here as well.
I hope I got it all right, Neil.
So let's see. So, one of the things that I thought was interesting in our planning calls, you mentioned, and we saw in the views of your shed, that you have most of the, some might argue more than enough materials to build your layout. Certainly with 200 locomotives, I think you're good in motive power. I think that might be more than D&H had at any given time. but
I can always lease them out.
It's right. You can always follow Chris's program or Tuesday, right?
That's right.
You have you're not going to have to start and then assemble a bunch of track or assemble a bunch of senior materials, because you have a lot of this stuff already just waiting to go, right?
Yeah, I've got boxes. I have boxes of code 83. I've been listening to you guys talk about the code 55 for the main lines. I'm not sure how readily available that is here, to be honest with you. The people that do the finer scale stuff or the finer code they seem to do hand laid track. In the past, most of the guys over here have used Shinohara, is it? I think
Yes.
it's called. And different things like that, or they actually hand lay their own track. So I'll have to look into whether or not I can get the code 55 because I appreciate the different height of the railhead and the number of sleepers. You know, you don't just go down and buy a code 100. That's, dare I say it, toy train. You know, it's not really prototypical
Right.
to a great degree. 83 is about as low as you want to go before you start getting into a higher quality, more realistic sort of thing.
Of wheel sets, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and keep in touch. We'll help you. We'll help you get some of that microengineering
Yeah, sure.
code 55 because
Good.
that's an awesome brand and that's a really nice looking track. You know, particularly well, Ken uses it quite extensively on his layout, and he's got some really cool, you know, industrial sidings and little yard at Eagle Bridge, and those are all code 55 and just look amazing. So, really good point.
You can sit there and look at his stuff day in, day out and not get bored. It's amazing.
No, you're right. You're right. But he has a story behind every scene on his layout, which I think's fascinating.
And he'll
So
tell
Michelle,
you them all too.
yep. I think I have a feeling that Ken, I have not known Ken nearly as long as you have. I've not known him very long at all, but I have a feeling Ken has a story behind a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Michelle, what do we have as far as questions and comments tonight?
Well, we started off with the very first comment on Facebook was that a lot of other places don't have basements either, even in America.
Oh, yeah.
There's a comment about that.
Yeah. You're out of luck in Texas or Louisiana.
I commented on how I love the covers of the books in your book collection. I think they're like art in themselves, just the design of the covers and the colors that they used. I just thought they were beautiful. So that was my comment.
I hope they weren't too distorted. I've got them all in plastic bags sealed so that the silverfish don't get into them.
Yes, so that they stay.
That's smart.
Nice.
That's very smart.
So we do have a question though. The question is, Rod, do you have a track plan already? Is it around the wall, 2-level, oriented for operation or for rail fanning?
Well, initially the section I'm going to build will be just a switching layout, but I'm going to use our friend Dave Taylor's idea and adopt it a bit to the Toma, the one module or single module thing. I don't want to build something, and we discussed this the other day, Kevin and I don't want to build something whereby if something happens to my parents and we have to move from here, the thing that breaks my heart is you see all these wonderful layouts and people have to move for whatever reason. I mean, our friend James Wright had moved recently. I don't know what happened to his layout, but more than likely it went in the trash. So that's something I'm going to try and avoid. My idea is to do the Toma type principle where I'm going to do sections and I can interchange them to fit into a greater layout later. So I'll have ends that run into nowhere. But that way, if I do have to move them around, I can just pull them apart and make it a lot handier to move them as well on your own. So to answer the question, initially I'm just going to do basically a glorified shelf layout along that wall. It's going to be freestanding. I'm not going to bolt it to my wall. And then eventually, hopefully, if I can find the pool table a good home, or if I need some firewood badly enough, I'll get some more of that floor space in there as well. I'll put the TV up on the wall. Can't get rid of the TV, can I? How am I going to watch my train videos? So, yeah, it'd probably be single layer. I don't think I'm talented enough to build the 2-layer, and I think 2-layer again would be too hard to move if that had to happen as well. So I hope that answered the question.
I think I see a junket coming together here for a bunch of us to go down under and help Rod get kicked off on this layout. You know, that sounds like that'd be fun.
Oh, you're welcome. I can fit a couple of beds in that room when it's clear. Don't worry.
Australia's on my bucket list, so you know.
Well, the US is on mine.
There we go.
Stephen says we can visit Wadco, Western Australia.
Yeah. Stefan says, yeah, we can visit Waco, Western Australia while we're there. Nice. More cab rides. Oh my gosh, look at this. Look how this thing's falling together. Cool.
I like
Putting
it.
words into
You're all
Stefan's mouth
welcome.
there.
Just remember, you've got to be able to drink the Darwin stubby. And for those of you who didn't see it,
Well, actually, as we talked about on a prior show, there we go. That's called a stubby, right?
That's a stubby, guys.
That's a stubby.
That's a little bottle.
Yeah, these
So
people
be
are
prepared
serious
if you
about
come.
these people are serious about their brews. And actually, that's not beer. That's tequila, isn't it?
That's beer. It's beer.
Yeah, in fact, Stefan, we talked about that when we were looking at Mark Shifter's layout, which is based in Western North Carolina, and Watco now operates that line as the Blue Ridge Southern, and we talked about going out there and cab ride palooza, as Stefan says, and then we talk about the breweries that are in the Asheville area. Well, we're talking about the same thing in Perth. We're talking about
absolutely
going down there and riding Western Australia, their Western Australia operations, and having a few stubbies. Well, not a few. I don't think I could do that. I might do a stubby or part of a stubby, a stub of a stubby.
Well, you guys have got some great rail journeys over there. You've got the Rocky Mountaineer. I'd love to go and see that up.
Yeah.
You've got your Amtrak goes from coast to coast basically. Over here we've got the GAN, which goes from the eastern states up to the Northern Territory. We've also got the one I'm more familiar with, the Indian Pacific, because it goes from Perth to Sydney. So it goes from the Indian Ocean to the Pacific Ocean.
Nice.
And of course that goes right across Australia, right through the arid middle, the Nullarbor Plain. And I believe, as we were saying again the other day, it's still the longest flat section, straight section of track in the world. So if you ever come over, that might be a train journey for you to do as well.
That sounds great. Well, and it sounds like you have an invitation to Dean's wedding at the Cass Scenic Railroad next year. So we're just going to have a student exchange program. How about that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Nice.
Only thing is, you have to come to Australia. You can't wear these all the time. You have to wear the proper.
Exactly.
You have to wear the older Kubra, otherwise you're not in Australia.
Exactly.
It gets warm down here, and you need to keep the sun out of your eye.
Wait, what did you call that hat?
It's called an Akubra.
Oh, Kubra?
This particular model is called a Territory. It's got a nice wide brim.
Nice.
They're
That's a
made
good
by
hat.
they're made by Akubra.
Oh,
Oh.
nice.
It's rabbit felt. Lots of rabbits.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, they're a curse over here. Someone sent them over here way back in the piece, and they ruin all the ground for the sheep and the cows. They ruin all the pasture ground. So they brought over a myxomatosis. I don't know if you guys have had that over there, an injection. They injected a few of the rabbits and got it out into the community, but it didn't work that well. There's still wild rabbits. I've got wild rabbits in my backyard.
Wow.
You walk out there and put your foot in the hole, you know about it. Twist your ankle very badly. So
We have one more question.
Yes.
And it's really more of a contemplative question. Rod says many modelers in Australia follow American or English prototypes, but are there many Aussie modelers who model Aussie? And I guess my question would be, is anybody in America model the Australian railroads? Anybody met anyone?
Well, remember Blair Koistra, who was on our show, he did at one point model the Victorian Railway.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've had someone on who's in the U.S. who models Australian railroads, and now we've had an Aussie that models U.S. railroads.
I think over here, as I said before, growing up as a child, your influences are either American or English. So you either go one way or the other. To a great degree, there wasn't a lot of Australian stuff available as I grew up. Not over here anyway. Over east, I think there was a little bit more. But because we are so isolated, I mean, Australia is great at getting things done, but unfortunately, if I order something from the eastern states, it can take up to 2 weeks to get it here because it'll come either on the back of a truck or a train and get handled many times, and thus the expense as well. But as far as the Australian manufacturing of, or people manufacturing Australian locos, there's now a few more that have started up. There's one called Ozrail. I can't remember the rest now. At the show, the last show, there was a few of them there. And what I liked about it, and I don't know whether I'll ever buy any or not. I'd like to, because as you were alluding to, Kevin, what you said very early on in the piece, what you see or have grown up with, it still holds a place in your heart to that degree. We had West Rail around here, which was the WA state-owned or government railroad, but West Rail was sort of ran as an independent sort of entity, and they have we have all sorts of weird and wonderful locomotives over here. We also do get a lot of the Elcos over here, particularly up north. All your big locos get imported and used on like Hammersley Iron, what Twiggy Foresters, all the Robe Iron, all the guys up north, they all use the big locos. And the majority of those now are remotely operated, by the way. A guy sits in the city here in Perth, and he'll be operating a train several kilometres long with maybe 10 or 12 locos lashed up all through it.
Wow.
And they'll be driving these things up north remotely because there's nothing around. And they're just sitting in their office having a coffee with a headset on and watching the screen. That's it. So it's all autonomous nearly now. But those big locos, I think it'd be scary, you know, trying to cross a line or something up there and you see them coming. There's no one on board. You better not try.
That's on that's on Hammersley's railroad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hammersley
Well,
Iron.
they're all doing it now. Hammersley Iron, Robe, they're all doing it. But those beasties, they're big machines that they get from the US. They're massive, and to a degree, they don't have to do a lot of modifications to them. So they just change the wheels and the bogies and maybe a few other things, and then they put them on the rail and off they go. I was just a little off point, but I found a video the other day, and I think it was as early as the 80s. We were getting delivered here in Fremantle Port a lot of the old trailer train, trailer on top of flat cars. And all they were basically able to use was the actual deck and the main frame of it. Everything else went. So, but yeah, it's fascinating. Even in the 80s, we were getting a lot of gear from you guys and modifying it to suit our purposes over here. So there you go.
Interesting. Nice. Well, we had a couple other comments there. Michelle, Gerald wants to go eat some steak sandwiches down under. Dean Taylor says he's looking forward to going somewhere where people say he talks funny. And then of course, Greg Cassidy said, like Georgia. He said, yeah. So,
I don't talk funny though, do I, Dean?
No, Dean doesn't think so.
No.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for this evening. It's been a joy to have you as a guest on our show, and I really enjoy your perspective, and it's still just can't get over the fact that we have D&H modelers, almost 12,000 miles away from the D&H, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, and we're looking forward to an update as you start building out in that shed.
Definitely.
And let's see, we'll be having our happy hour Saturday at 5 as usual. Wow, that's like 7 a.m. for Rod. But then again, you say you're hard drinking folks in Australia, so
it depends what
whatever.
time I get up.
But our happy hour is Saturday evening, 5 Mountain Time. And then, of course, next Tuesday and Thursday, our regular OS virtual check-ins, and we've got shows lined up for both those coming down the pike. So we hope to see you then. I do want to put a couple things out. If we have, it looks like we're going to be booked through this month and into June as far as guests, but we can always use more guests. Pat Lana on this call has sent me a few suggestions. Thank you, Pat. And I want to throw a question out there to anybody. If anybody on the show knows Jay and Brooke Qualman up in Michigan, I want to contact Jay and Brooke because they have a pretty amazing. They're a couple that have a pretty amazing Pere Marquette layout of Western Michigan. So if anybody knows them and could make an introduction, I appreciate that, because that would be would love to have them on the show, or at least ask them if they'd be interested in being on the show. Again, Rod, thank you so much, my friend. Great to have you tonight. Michelle, Chris, thank you both. And drive safely, Chris. And we will see y'all hopefully Saturday evening and then next Tuesday. And you know what I'm going to do? This is your recommendation. I'm going to figure out how to do this here. Participants, I'm going to unmute everybody so we can all say goodbye. How about that? How do I do it? I got to go to the top, I think. Hold on. Hold on. We're going to get this done. We're going to get this done. Unmute all. There we go. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a
Care,
great
Mike.
night.
Bye.
Take care. See you Saturday.
Thank you for having us.
Take care.
See y'all.
See you, Rob.